What's up, everybody? This is Johners for episode 2 of Wrestling with Johners. Today we're going to be looking at detail from the NXT UK shows from last night. You may have seen them. There was another 2-hour show. And then we're going to be going on to a brief review of this week's NXT US, you could call it, from Full Sail. And then we'll do a quick rundown, a preview of this weekend's big wrestling shows from the WWE. You've obviously got WWE Survivor Series on Sunday evening. Lots of happening there with regards to the card changing, people in, people out, injuries, new champions, and then we'll be looking at NXT Takeover WarGames, the second annual WarGames event from WWE NXT. So, how was your week been? I hope you've all had a fun week. Hope you've been able to spread the word about Wrestling with Johners. It's available on pretty much all popular podcast platforms: Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, and so on and so on. You name it, we're pretty much on all of them so far. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please give us some feedback if you feel that there's things that we need to improve on. It's early days. Things are only going to get better with the podcast. So, let's jump straight into it. We've got a lot to discuss here. 2 very entertaining hours of NXT UK from the 14th of November. And it starts with Triple H. All 8 female women competitors for the NXT UK Women's Championship are up on stage. And Triple H, with Johnny Say, announces that there will be a NXT UK Women's Championship. The competitors for the championship is going to be Ginny, Miley McKenzie, Toni Storm, Nina Samuels, Dakota Kai, Isla Dawn, Rhea Ripley, and Xia Brookside. So we'll talk more about the brackets a bit later on. The tournament does start tonight, however. We have a replay of the Coffey Brothers attacking Ashton Smith from 3 weeks ago. Smith goes up against Wolfgang later on tonight, and Tyler Bate goes up against James Drake, all in the first hour. The first match of the evening is Sid Scala. Now, we've seen him a couple of times before, unfortunately losing in his debut match on NXT UK, going up against Jordan Devlin. Now, I mentioned last week how much Devlin has impressed me, and with his newfound attitude, Devlin has proved very credible in the ring. Devlin, trained by WWE superstar Finn Balor. Devlin hits a standing moonsault along with a solid Irish whip to start the match, sending Scala into the corner. Devlin hits a very impressive slingshot cutter on Scala from the outside to the inside of the ring for a 2 count. Scala makes a brief comeback with lefts and rights, followed by a neckbreaker. However, Devlin cuts Scala's attack short with a drop kick that knocks Scala out of the sky. So a very impressive move there, followed by Devlin's finisher, the Irish Call, for the 1-2-3. After the match, Devlin gets on the mic and says that Ligaro walks around the back in a mask and a cape when he is from Leeds. Devlin said he knows who he is, and he is looking to take on Ligaro in a future episode. Next, there's a recap from Moustache Mountain's England segment from NXT Week 1, so all the way back to the very first show. And a reminder that there will be an NXT UK Tag Title Tournament coming very soon, and there's some NXT UK Tag Team action next. We have a vignette from Tyson T-Bone, who is up with his debut next on NXT UK. However, we've got a bit of tag team action for you next, with Saxton Huxley and Joseph Connors pairing up to take on Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan. It's likely that we'll see one or maybe both of these 2 teams in the NXT UK Tag Title Tournament when it starts in the near future. A quick start to the match with Jordan and Williams hitting some fast-paced moves before Connor gets tagged in to dominate the smaller Amir Jordan with a couple of clotheslines and a gorilla press slam by Huxley to follow. Jordan hits the second rope leaping clothesline, eventually allowing Williams to enter and to hit a wrecking ball dropkick and a tope dive through the ropes onto Huxley on the outside. Connors hits a sunset bomb on Williams before his don't look down finisher on Williams for the eventual win. Some promising sequences from Williams and Jordan, however the size and power advantage from Connors and Huxley was just too much as they take the victory. So we spoke earlier about the 8 competitors for the NXT UK Women's Championship Tournament, which starts tonight. In fact, it'll be starting in hour 2, and the opening brackets, the first round or the quarter-final matches for the 8 competitors are as follows. Ginny will be taking on Miley McKenzie. Toni Storm will be taking on Nina Samuels. Dakota Kai will be taking on Isla Dawn, and Rhea Ripley will be up against Xia Brookside, all in the first set of matches to crown the new NXT UK Women's Champion. So, by the looks of it, the tournament will be starting tonight, and that will be highlighted with some matches in hour 2. There's a backstage segment where Trent Seven was sending out some words of warning for Zach Gibson, and it looks like we'll be getting these two on next week's episode, or possibly hour 2 of NXT UK tonight. That will certainly be one to watch out for. Next up in the ring, however, we have Tyler Bate versus James Drake. Plenty of big, strong boy chants from the fans in attendance at Birmingham. James Drake lost to Ligero on last week's episode. However, he does look ready as he goes up against the first ever UK Championship Tournament winner and the first ever UK champion, Tyler Bate. He's got his own face on his arse chant from for James Drake from the fans in attendance. And the fans are really getting into the action in the early stages here. Drake is quick to knock Bate from the second turnbuckle to the outside before regaining control, and the pace of the match with a headlock and a stomp to the head of Tyler Bate. Some solid uppercuts, forearms from Bate is met with a quick drop kick, flooring Tyler Bate in the process. Bate is able to regain control with a spinning elbow, a running elbow into the corner, and a standing moonsault from Tyler Bate. Bate hits an impressive dive onto Drake to the outside of the ring, followed by a delayed German suplex onto Drake. Drake hits a vicious dropkick to Bate for a close 3 count, but Tyler Bate is able to hit a big lariat, followed by his Tyler Driver 97 finisher move for the 3 count and the win. Another impressive win for Tyler Bate, but James Drake did show me a lot in this match, and whether it's in singles or tag team matches with Zach Gibson, I'm looking forward to seeing more from James Drake in the future. Next we have a match between Ashton Smith and Wolfgang, which will be closing out this first hour of NXT UK. Smith attempts a flying crossbody to open the match, only to be caught with a gutbuster from Wolfgang and a wicked Irish whip into the turnbuckles. Smith hits back with an impressive high knee and clothesline combo to take Wolfgang off his feet. Smith hits a leapfrog and crossbody to get a 2 count and a couple of stiff strikes to Wolfgang's face. However, Smith couldn't lift Wolfgang up onto his shoulders and injures his back in the process. Wolfgang hits his finisher, the trapped leg suplex for the 3 count and the win. After the match, the Coffey Brothers enters the ring with Wolfgang and pose as hour 1 comes to a close. I never have really been the biggest fan of Wolfgang. However, I do like this version of Wolfgang as part of the heel faction with the Coffey Brothers. The WWE clearly like the look of Joe and Mark Coffey, and they do make a menacing group with Wolfgang and have so far been very successful. They're clearly the standout heels in NXT UK brand at the moment, and they could be the clear favourites going into the tag title tournament in the coming weeks. This was a bit of a standard first hour of this week's NXT UK, with standout performances from Jordan Devlin and James Drake, in my opinion. We move on to hour 2 of this week's show, filmed in Birmingham. Hour 2 starts with a clip of the 8 female competitors in the NXT UK Women's Championship Tournament. I like all 8 of the wrestlers involved in the tournament. However, I do have my concerns about Xia Brookside being a little too green for this tournament. You may remember that Xia was the first victim of Io Shirai in this year's Mae Young Classic, and is the daughter of WWE Performance Center trainer Robbie Brookside. I would have preferred to have seen Killer Kelly instead. However, I'm sure that would have there would have been further complaints from the fans that Killer Kelly would have been yet another non-UK talent alongside the likes of Toni Storm, Dakota Kai, and Rhea Ripley. Speaking of Dakota, she's in the opening match of this tournament. So we've got Dakota Kai versus Nina Samuels. Kai hits a stiff kick to the chest of Samuels, followed by a double foot stomp for an early 2 count. Samuels takes control, working on Dakota's back, with the crowd showing a lot of heat towards Samuels as she hits an impressive tilt-a-whirl backbreaker for another 2 count. Samuels puts Dakota into a gory special backstretcher. However, Kai is able to reverse this into a roll-up attempt. Kai gets her second wind, drop kicking Samuels into the corner, followed by a double running kick into the corner, followed by her chiropractor finisher for the 3 count and the win. Kai's finisher looks similar to a Canadian destroyer. Nigel McGuinness on commentary described it as a code red into an inverted backstabber. So quite an inventive move there from Kai. Nevertheless, an impressive move and an impressive win for the first round victory for Dakota Kai. We see a graphic showing Tyson T-Bone, who'll be making his debut tonight, followed by a graphic of the ever-impressive Dave Mastiff, who will also be in action this evening. Mark Andrews is in a backstage interview talking about his issue with the Coffey Brothers. However, he said that he has bigger things on his mind at the moment. He says that he is the most exciting wrestler on the NXT UK brand and that he can do things that nobody else can do. But one thing he is missing is championship gold around his waist. Then Flash Morgan Webster enters the picture, suggesting a possible partnership with Andrews in the up-and-coming tag team tournament for the NXT tag titles. This could be a very interesting pairing of Andrews and Webster. Then we see a backstage segment with Ashton Smith talking about his loss to Wolfgang in last week's show, when Eddie Dennis enters the picture, mocking Smith for his loss and telling him to catch his match next week for some tips. A possible feud brewing between Eddie Dennis and Ashton Smith. Jack Constantine is up against Tyson T-Bone in his NXT UK debut. Now, Jack Constantine, not too familiar with him. I'm sure he's done some work on the UK independent circuit. Apologies if he's better known than I have given him credit for. Tyson T-Bone, of course, we know him from the inaugural WWE UK Championship tournament last year and progressed to the second round. Tyson's gimmick is of a traveller, and he starts the match by throwing Constantino around the ring. Tyson looks impressive as he hits some hard shots, a back suplex and a big elbow for a 2 count. Tyson hits a huge right hand followed by a stiff lariat for the win in just under 2 minutes. No flash or anything too flashy from Tyson T-Bone, but definitely getting the attention of the NXT UK fans. Tyson then gets on the mic asking, is this a joke? Is this the best that NXT UK can offer? He states that it's just a joke as he leaves the ring. However, as Tyson gets stopped halfway up the ramp by the music of the Bomber, Dave Mastiff. The next, ready for his matchup next on NXT UK. Now, this could be a match between Tyson and Mastiff that I would definitely like to see in the future between these two big men. I've said before how Mastiff is one scary monster who is definitely one to watch. However, tonight, Tyson T-Bone will have to watch from the sidelines. So we've got Dave Mastiff versus Dan Maloney. Dan Maloney was part of the first ever WWE UK Championship tournament in early 2017. Mastiff hits Maloney with an impressive dropkick, followed by a senton with all of his 303-pound bodyweight squashing his opponent. Mastiff adds insult to injury with a massive German suplex, followed by his patented running cannonball into the corner, allowing him to pin Maloney in just under 2 minutes. I'm really enjoying these squash matches, allowing us to learn more about NXT UK wrestlers, their movesets and their characters. This is something I would like to see more from the main roster, if I'm honest, to help with a bit of character development Squash matches were always a good way to get superstars to get superstars over. Certainly when I started watching WWE back in the early 90s, and something that is definitely working now in NXT UK. We get a backstage segment with Sid Scala, who we've seen a few times over recent weeks, unfortunately in losing roles. Next, we've got Ginny versus Miley McKenzie. This is the second of the quarterfinal matches in the NXT UK Women's Tournament. This, as a matter of fact, although we've seen quite a few vignettes and backstage clips of Ginny, this is Ginny's NXT UK debut. And although she is far from a novice in the wrestling game, she is the current Progress Women's Champion, as well as being in this year's Mae Young Classic. Miley McKenzie is only 18 years old and a very exciting and talented individual. I've recently completed a review of Progress's Pumpkin Spice Show from last month, where McKenzie had a great match with Isla Dawn. Go out of your way to listen to my review of this show when it's out, and go out of your way to watch the match with Isla Dawn on Progress On Demand. However, tonight McKenzie has her hands full with Ginny. McKenzie really takes it to Ginny in the early stages, but Ginny counters with a flatliner into the corner to regain control. Ginny applies a surfboard submission hold before stomping McKenzie face first into the mat. McKenzie hits a massive spear from out of nowhere for a 2 count before hitting 2 successive release German suplexes for another 2 count. Ginny hits a Japanese arm drag, sending Miley into the corner, followed by a rolling kick to end the match with a 3 count. Ginny progresses to the next round with an impressive win. However, I look forward to seeing Miley McKenzie again on the WWE UK shows and see a very bright future for her. Remember, she's only 18 and she's already this good. We see a clip from last week's show with Devlin sending out a challenge to Ligero, and we will see Devlin and Ligero in next week's show. Next up, we got Zach Gibson and Trent Seven. Zach does his usual introduction, exclaiming that he is Liverpool's number one, soon to be recognised as NXT UK's number one, and soon to be recognised as the world's number one. He said that the Beatles conquered music and that Liverpool Football Club, but before he could continue, there was Trent Seven coming out with his entrance music, interrupting Zach Gibson just as he did last week. This match was set up last week when Trent interrupted Zach Gibson's promo after he beat Amir Jordan. The crowd are into the anti-Zach Gibson chants early on as Gibson goes to work on Seven's left arm. After a cartwheel and a couple of chops by Seven, Gibson decides that enough is enough and exits the ring and starts to walk back up the ramp to the locker rooms. This is halted when Tom comes down to the ring, stopping Gibson in his tracks, allowing Seven to hit another series of almighty chops. Gibson regains control with a chop of his own and a key lock in the centre of the ring before hitting a drop kick to Seven's injured left arm. Gibson hits a key lock driver for a 2 count, and after an exchange of slaps between the two, Seven hits a DDT before hitting a missile dive through the ropes to Gibson on the outside. Seven hits a snap dragon driver and a powerbomb combo for a 2 count. This match is definitely back and forth between these two premier athletes and the NXT UK brand, with the crowd invested in the action of this match. Gibson hits a very impressive ticket to ride lung blower onto Seven for the 2 count before applying the Shankly Gate submission to Seven's injured left arm. But Trent managed to reach the ropes to break the hold. A brief interaction from Tyler Bate was enough to allow Seven to hit the 7-star lariat, but only for the 2 counts. Zach Gibson's tag team partner James Drake enters the fray with an attack on Tyler Bate on the outside, causing enough of a distraction for Gibson to roll Seven up into a small package, and with help from Drake on the outside, gain some extra leverage to score the pinfall on the man from Moustache Mountain. Just as Gibson and Drake are leaving the stage area, the Coffey Brothers and Wolfgang snuck into the ring to take out Tyler Bate and Trent Seven, possibly setting up more potential opponents in the lead up to the NXT Tag Team Tournament. This is the third week in a row that we have seen the Coffey Brothers and Wolfgang standing tall at the end of an episode of NXT UK, making them look very strong indeed and possible frontrunners for the tag team titles. Overall, this was another strong hour of NXT UK, with some good storylines developing, including an intriguing matchup between Tyson T-Bone and Dave Mastiff in the future, Jordan Devlin and Ligaro, which is going to be happening next week, and Moustache Mountain. I'm sure that they will be facing the Coffey Brothers and Wolfgang, possibly as part of the tag team title tournament coming up in the next few weeks. The NXT Women's Championship Tournament has also started with two strong matches, reminding me of why the Mae Young Classic was so popular both last year and this year. The NXT UK TV show is definitely hitting its stride with plenty of strong matches and storylines on a week-to-week basis. Let's head on to NXT. This week's episode from Full Sail from the 14th of November is the go-home show before NXT Takeover WarGames. So we start off with Bianca Belair versus Mia Yim. So Bianca Belair is definitely the EST of NXT, but she could be one of the brightest prospects for WWE in the future. But tonight she goes up against Mia Yim, who has competed in the last two Mae Young Classics and has just signed a full-time contract with NXT. Mia starts the match with Pace hitting 4 drop kicks in a row before being shoved to the outside. Belair takes control of the match using her power to keep Yim down. Mia Yim was able to turn the tide with some more drop kicks and a tilt of the world slam for a 2 count on Belair. However, Bianca is able to hit a spine buster for another 2 count. The story of the match overall is whether the experienced Mia Yim could cause Bianca's first ever defeat, not counting her loss in the 2017 Mae Young Classic. However, Belair was able to hoist her opponent into her finisher, the KOD, for the 3 count. A fun and hard-hitting match between these two exciting individuals. Then there's a backstage segment showing the team of Ricochet, Pete Dunne and the War Raiders discussing who is going to take on Kyle O'Reilly to see which team goes into the WarGames match at TakeOver with the man advantage. Ricochet and Dunne argue that it should be them, and when Hanson from the War Raiders stated that it was going to be him and walks off to get ready for his match. Next, there's a special segment looking at the build to the TakeOver match between Johnny Gargano and Aleister Black. There's a backstage interview with Matt Riddle. He explains that his experience has been amazing so far on NXT. He made his debut and feels that he can take on anything, and says that NXT isn't ready for the bro. Cassius Ohno enters the stage saying that he is a man of action and says that he thinks the bro show is trash. Riddle says that he will take his little test and will pass his little test next week on NXT and leave Ohno knocked out in the middle of the ring. I think this is going to be a pre-show match. I think they're definitely going with just 4 matches for the main card. This one that they've been building to for a little while will probably go on during the pre-show. Next we see a bit of a squash match between Carissa Riviera versus Lacey Evans. Evans wins after striking the women's right for the 3 count after only 2 minutes. After the match, Lacey gets on the mic saying that NXT is a bunch of classless nasties, sending out a clear message to the rest of the NXT women in the locker room. Then there's a video package hyping up the NXT Championship match between Tommaso Ciampa and the Velveteen Dream at NXT Takeover on Saturday night. This should be a great match with 2 wrestlers at the top of their game right now. There's another video package hyping up the match between Shayna Baszler and Kairi Sane in their, I think, 4th match overall. This is going to be a 2 out of 3 falls match for the NXT Women's Championship. The WarGames advantage match between Kyle O'Reilly versus Hanson from the War Raiders. So, Hanson dominates the match in the early going with his size and power, until Adam Cole comes down to distract Hanson from hitting a top rope maneuver on O'Reilly. However, Hanson takes to the top and executes an impressive moonsault. However, O'Reilly moved, causing Hansen to crash to the canvas. Adam Cole gets involved by hitting Hansen across the face, but O'Reilly was only able to get the advantage for a short amount of time until the rest of Undisputed Era came out to beat down Rowe. Pete Dunne comes out to even up the numbers until Ricochet came out of nowhere to take out all of Undisputed Era on the outside with an impressive dive from the inside of the ring over the top rope to the outside. While the ref was distracted, Kyle O'Reilly attacks Hansen with the tag title belt before hooking the leg for the 1-2-3 and the victory. The story coming out of the match is that Hansen and Pete Dunne have injured knees, which could play a factor in the WarGames match on Saturday. But it looks like at the conclusion of this match, you've got the Undisputed Era being the first team to have a second man inside the cage during the WarGames match on Saturday. So they have the man advantage when the next person enters the cage. Let's have a quick look at the Survivor Series card. So WWE Survivor Series taking place on Sunday evening, the night after Takeover. You've got the traditional men's 5-on-5 match, pitting the 5 individuals from Raw: Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Braun Strowman, Finn Balor and Dolph Ziggler, versus the 5 from SmackDown Live: Samoa Joe, Jeff Hardy, Shane McMahon, The Miz and Rey Mysterio. Now remember that The Miz was joint co-captains with Daniel Bryan up until Daniel Bryan won the WWE Championship match against AJ Styles this past Tuesday, meaning that Daniel Bryan has another appointment on Sunday evening. We'll talk more about that in a second. So there was a gap left in the SmackDown Live team, which was filled by Jeff Hardy. Where do I see this match going? I personally think that the likes of Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre are definitely the individuals that are being pushed, or certainly on the rise as far as WWE management are concerned. Braun Strowman certainly the more powerful figure within the team there. I do think Drew McIntyre is definitely in line for a future Universal Championship push, so I see these two being the survivors at the end of the match. Looking at the women's 5-on-5 traditional Survivor Series match, from the Raw side you've got Mickie James, Nia Jax, Natalya, Tamina Snuka and Ruby Riott versus the SmackDown team of Carmella, Asuka, Naomi, Sonya Deville and one more person yet to be named. Remember that Charlotte was the team captain for SmackDown Live. She is now part of the match against Ronda Rousey. So there will be a replacement there, I'm sure. Could it be Nikki Cross? Could it be Mandy Rose? We shall wait and see. I think, looking at the lineup as it is, Nia Jax, although she's in a lot of people's bad books at the moment for taking Becky Lynch out with a legit punch to the face, breaking her face or possibly her nose. Hopefully not anything more serious than that. She does have a concussion as well, but I think Nia Jax will almost certainly be the sole survivor. And I think, maybe Tamina Snuka, because I think there's a bit of an alliance going there between Nia Jax and Tamina Snuka. Looking at the traditional 10-on-10 tag team Survivor Series match for Raw, you've got Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, The Ascension, The Revival, The B Team and the Lucha House Party. They go up against the 5 teams from SmackDown, the New Day, the Usos, who are the captains of the team, Gallows and Anderson, Sanity. It's not quite their pay-per-view debut. I know that they was on a kickoff show earlier on in the year, but they've not really had a pay-per-view appearance. They've not really had much of a TV appearance since then, to be honest with you. Back on the kickoff show, unfortunately for them, and the Colognes to round off the SmackDown team. You can see that both Raw and SmackDown tag team rosters are pretty thin on the ground. Hence using the Colognes in particular, but it should be a fun match. As I've already mentioned, it will be going on the kickoff. Honestly, I probably see the New Day and the Usos as the survivors. Hopefully, the Revival get a good showing. I don't really care much for any of the other teams, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I hope that Sanity have a fairly good show, especially if Killian Dane's in there. I think Gallows and Anderson have seen much better days, certainly with the WWE. Anyway, looking at some of the individual matches, Buddy Murphy and Mustafa Ali battle it out for the WWE Cruiserweight title. Buddy Murphy, of course, won it at the Super Showdown in Australia a month or so back. Mustafa Ali, he is the what do they call it? The heart of the Cruiserweight division. Certainly my favourite individual within 205 Live. I can't see Buddy Murphy dropping the title this early into his reign, but if anybody should do it, I think Mustafa Ali definitely deserves a run with the title there. You've got the Authors of Pain versus The Bar. Will The Bar be accompanied by The Big Show? If so, that could be a factor. I know that Authors of Pain have only just won the Raw Tag Team titles, so it'll be a little bit too early for them to have the to lose to The Bar. Don't think any of the titles are on the line. I'd like to see the Authors of Pain get the victory, although I am a big fan of Cesaro and Sheamus. Not so much the Big Show. That would be quite an interesting match between four big, powerful individuals. Then you've got Seth Rollins, the Intercontinental Champion, against SmackDown's US Champion Shinsuke Nakamura. This is a bit of a dream match for all wrestling fans. Hopefully, if this one's given enough time, a good 15 to 20 minutes, they should pull off a good match. Shinsuke Nakamura's WWE career has been quite lackluster, a little bit on the boring side. They haven't really given him the correct push as far as I'm concerned. He's got a lot of skill, a lot of talent, great personality. Hopefully they give him a second chance. Although he's US champion, half the time we struggle to remember who's holding that belt. It is Nakamura. I think that him versus Seth Rollins deserve to have, like I say, a good 15 to 20 minutes, if not a bit longer, and they could potentially pull off the match of the night. Then you got Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan won the WWE Championship from AJ Styles on Tuesday in a surprise rematch, considering I think they only fought the week before when Daniel Bryan tapped out to the calf crusher. Apparently it was planned from last weekend that Daniel Bryan was going to face AJ Styles this Tuesday and take the title. It seemed a little bit rushed, a little bit impromptu to me. He is now the WWE Champion with a slight heel edge to him. He goes up against Brock Lesnar, which is once again another dream match and something that wrestling fans have been after for quite a while. They thought they'd never see it with Daniel Bryan being out injured. Since he returned this year, his babyface push didn't really go as well as we would have hoped. His feud with The Miz was very short-lived, and they could have done so much more with it, including a possible match at WrestleMania. They blew off that feud far too early, and in less than impressive style. But now that he's got a bit of a heel edge to him against Brock Lesnar, I think that's definitely going to be a great match on Sunday. Finally, on the Survivor Series card, you got Ronda Rousey going up against Charlotte Flair. Now, originally it was going to be SmackDown champion Becky Lynch against Raw Women's champion Ronda Rousey. Becky Lynch, of course, got punched in the face with a legitimate punch from Nia Jax, breaking her nose, giving Becky Lynch a severe concussion and taking her out of action, certainly for this Sunday, who knows, but for how much longer. Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey was penciled in for being a WrestleMania 35 match, possibly headlining the whole show. I think Charlotte Flair's shine has faded a little bit this year. Maybe a little bit of overexposure, maybe the company getting too much behind her, having a little bit of Roman Reigns syndrome, where she's being shoved down your throat. Maybe with this match, they've had second thoughts about Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, and Becky Lynch's injury could be a blessing in disguise, which may lead to a WrestleMania 35 match between Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey in the MetLife Stadium. So that's the WWE Survivor Series card. This show focuses mostly on NXT UK and NXT action from Full Sail. So let's have a look at the Takeover WarGames card. So looking at the card for Takeover on Saturday night, as I mentioned earlier, usually Takeover shows have 5 matches in the main show, with the Takeover shows going anywhere between 2 to 2.5 hours. I know the Takeover at New Orleans just before this year's WrestleMania went 3 hours, but they've decided to go with just 4 matches on the main card for the main Takeover show. Now, Matt Riddle and Cassius Ohno, that's a little bit of a feud that's been building for a number of weeks now, certainly with Cassius Ohno wanting to know when William Regal's shiny new toy was going to arrive. Well, he's here, and Matt Riddle will be facing Cassius Ohno, but it looks like on the pre-show. So if you want to see that match, check out the pre-show before the main show this Saturday night. Looking at the main card, you've got 4 key matches, as I've already said, starting with Aleister Black versus Johnny Gargano. So Johnny was unveiled to be the attacker of Aleister Black from the parking lot incident from a couple of months ago. It was a very intriguing storyline which went on week after week, trying to figure out who attacked Aleister Black. By all accounts, it was Johnny Gargano. So they have quite a tasty little feud going, and I think they should pull off a very interesting, very hard-hitting match that the crowd will definitely be behind. Who do I think should win? Aleister Black should get his revenge, obviously, but I've got a feeling that with Johnny Gargano's new heel personality, Johnny Gargano's slightly dark side, I think that he could pull off the win by a surprise victory. So yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Johnny Gargano. Then we look at the NXT Women's Championship, Shayna Baszler versus Kairi Sane. So this is their 4th match in NXT. This is a 2 out of 3 falls match. So you had a lot of interference at WWE Evolution when Shayna Baszler regained the title to be the first ever NXT Women's Champion for a second time over Kairi Sane at that event. A lot of outside interference from the other members of the MMA horsewomen, you could say. I think they could prove a factor again. Will Kairi Sane have somebody in her corner? Will she have a bit of a backup plan? Maybe Io Shirai, maybe Mia Yim, who knows? I can't see Shayna Baszler losing the title this early on after regaining it for the second time, although she is due a main roster run. I think that will come in 2019, not just yet. I don't think she's going to be losing the title to Kairi Sane. I think possibly Bianca Belair could be the next contender to Shayna Baszler's title. I see Shayna going over on this one. Then we look at the NXT championship match between Tommaso Ciampa, the champion, versus Velveteen Dream. And Velveteen Dream has really taken the wrestling world by storm in the last year and a half or so since he came up to the NXT roster. His character, his wrestling style, his risk-taking, his heavy bumps, he pretty much has everything, certainly for a very successful career with the WWE in NXT and on the main roster in the very near future, I'm sure. But I see Tommaso Ciampa regaining his title. I can't see him losing it here. I think Velveteen Dream has better things to come in the future. He may be NXT champion sometime in the future, but I see Tommaso Ciampa holding the NXT championship all the way up until WrestleMania, where there could be another match between him and Johnny Gargano. However, on this occasion, I think Tommaso Ciampa is definitely going over. Finally, looking at the WarGames match itself, this is the 2nd year where we've had the WarGames concept. Last year, Undisputed Era won the match. They were up against Sanity and the Authors of Pain and Roderick Strong. Remember, Roderick Strong is now a member of Undisputed Era, so it's 4-on-4. Within Undisputed Era, you've obviously got Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Roderick Strong versus the foursome of Pete Dunne, Ricochet, and the War Raiders. I'd be surprised if Undisputed Era wins the WarGames match 2 years running. I think the team of Pete Dunne, Ricochet, and the War Riders will win. It's going to be a great opportunity for Ricochet to fly all around them 2 rings and the cage. I think the team of Pete Dunne, Ricochet, and War Raiders will come out victorious on this. So, I'll be doing a full review of NXT Takeover WarGames over the weekend, and we'll be getting hopefully a review of WarGames out on Sunday. You can listen to Wrestling with Johners on all the major podcasting platforms, including YouTube. So I normally record it for my YouTube page on the same day as it going out, dropping on all the podcast platforms. So look out for that. If you have any questions about the show or anything you would like to ask, or if you have any feedback about the show, you can contact me on wrestlingwithjohners@gmail.com. So yeah, give us your feedback. Get in touch about the show. Would love to hear from you. You can also get in touch via my Twitter page. That's at wrestlingwithjohners_WWJ. As I mentioned, the YouTube page is up and running. Just search Johners Wrestling. So the Wrestling with Johners intro music was produced by a friend of mine called Half Decent. If you like the music, before the podcast and at the end of the podcast, you can visit Half Decent's web page, halfdecentmusic.com. You won't regret it. One of the best up-and-coming rappers in the UK right now. So, if you enjoyed this episode of Wrestling with Johners, I hope you did. The quality is only going to get better, so spread the word and keep listening. Regular weekly episodes will drop every Thursday or Friday, unless it's a special episode like the Takeover episode, which I hope to get out over the weekend, so don't miss out. Take care and see you all soon. And as I mentioned, listen out for the Takeover review, which will be out on Sunday. I will also be dropping another special podcast very soon, reviewing Progress's Pumpkin Spice Show from Camden's Electric Ballroom from the 28th of October. We'll be back for another episode of Wrestling with Johners to review NXT UK and NXT from Full Sail next week. So take care, enjoy your week, and enjoy Survivor Series, and enjoy NXT Takeover WarGames. Catch up with you all soon. Bye.